Welcome to Astrology Bytes. This is your host, Theresa Reed, the Tarot Lady. I'm the author of Astrology for Real Life, a no BS guide for the astro curious, and Twist Your Fate, Manifest Success with Astrology and Tarot. I'm also your host for this podcast series. And if you're curious about astrology, you are definitely in the right place. Now, this podcast has been discontinued months ago, but I am bringing you a bonus episode because I have a hot topic and I've got an astrologer that I love to talk with. So, we're going to be talking with none other than Rebecca Gordon about elements in astrology. Welcome, Rebecca.
Hey, Teresa. Thanks so much. It's good to be here for the revival of your podcast. I'm honored.
Yeah, this is like a little bonus episode for folks, but I think this is a topic that hasn't been addressed enough. And a lot of people are always seem to be asking about the elements. What do we need to know about the elements? So the first thing I want to ask you is what role do the elements play in astrology?
Well, in my opinion, elements are probably the most important part of astrology. They are the building blocks that you and I are made up of, different amounts, varying amounts of earth, air, fire, and water, essentially. So if we start from the elements, we get a core sense of who a person is, what they came here to do on the planet, the best kinds of roles for them to play, areas where we might need to work on more. I mean, before looking at signs and planets and houses and aspects, I start with the elements. And essentially, the planets are in signs, and the signs all fall into one of the four elements: fire, earth, air, and water. And if I look at a person just by their elemental balance first, we are going to get such a clear picture of the role they came here to play on planet Earth.
I love that. And of course, we live in the elements, we live amongst the elements, so we have to somehow interact with all these other different types of elements. So that makes a lot of sense. Now,
Mm.
what are some of the characteristics of each element? You mentioned earth, air, fire, and water. If you had to describe those as personality traits, what might we find in each one of those?
Well, I first think of the elements that exist on our planet Earth. We think of fire. Let's think about the element. Let's start with fire because that's the first. That's the initial element. The zodiac wheel starts with Aries. Right? We light the match, and there's fire. Um, and fire is also in the natural world. We can think of the fire in a volcano, the fire in the sun, the sunlight. We can think of holding a torch as fire. And these are three kinds of fire that exist within us in the natural world. So what I teach in our beginners class and always in all my classes is what I call an ecosystems method of astrology. So I'd love to encourage people to think of their bodies as part of this earth, part of nature. You are no different than the earth. So when we talk about like the fire of Leo, I would want you to envision a campfire and this sort of convivial atmosphere, people gathering around, maybe somebody singing a song or telling a story. And that's the essence of Leo, is that kind of campfire atmosphere, and we can think of other elements. We can think of like the essence of Aries as in lighting a match, starting the fire, like lighting the campfire. We could also think about Aries as in the burst of a volcano. It's that initial sharp, fresh, it's kind of like that fresh, clean punch, like the initial sprout coming out from the soil. So that's one kind of fire. And we can also think of Sagittarian fire as the fire of belief, like when you hold a torch and that torch is for a specific something you believe in. It could be for a greater mission, a vision, a purpose. It's a torch of meaning and belief. So it is the fire of belief. You light a candle for a purpose and you stand for that purpose. You're holding the torch because you believe in something. And these three kinds of fire all are in the realm of experience. They're all experiential. When you meet somebody that's got a lot of fire in their chart, they're likely not sitting behind a desk and crunching numbers all day. They are out in the world being vibrant and bright. Maybe they're singing, they're dancing, they're leading a room full of people. They walk into a room and they have that pop. You feel the light. And for some that can be intimidating because it's a lot, right? And they even can be a little red on the face too, right? You can see a fiery person from far away. It's interesting. They look like there's sparks kind of bouncing off their cheeks in a way too. I have Leo rising, and you can maybe tell because of my hair. Leo rising people tend to have big hair or light colored hair. Even if you come from a family with dark colored hair, you might have the lightest and rosy cheeks too. It's very Leo rising or fire rising. Every element has its own characteristics, and people really do look like their element.
That's very true. My husband has a moon in Aries and a Sag rising. He's a Virgo like you, but he's got fire in his big three, and his face gets red, especially if he gets mad. It is red, so he definitely does have some of that in his complexion. So what about earth elements? How would you explain that as characteristics?
Yeah, it's really interesting when we start mixing the elements too, and which I would love to get into with you a bit, Theresa, because when you mix fire and earth, you have a completely new personality type. So we can talk about some of the alchemies as well that got created here. But earth, we can think of three kinds of earth as well. And let's come back to the natural world because we are part of this natural world. And, perhaps aliens bred with, some form of animal and that created us. I don't really know how it all went down, but I'll say this, that we are still part of nature. There's copper, there's the elements are all in our bodies. And literally the balance, the whole physiognomy of somebody who has lots of fire is different than somebody who has lots of water. People who have lots of water retain more water. People who have lots of fire, they burn up the water fast and they need to drink a lot more water. Now, people who have lots of earth in their body, let's talk about earth. Yes, they are sturdy. They are steady. They generally can be more dense in their muscular build versus air people, tend to be more elongated. The three kinds of earth are Taurus, Virgo, and Capricorn. So shall we go into the natural elements as well
Yeah, I love
in the
that. I
world?
love it. I'm so curious.
Okay, I love bringing it back to nature. And when we enter the sign of Taurus, we enter that moist, rich earth of spring when all the snow's just melted into the soil. So you can imagine that very fertile spring earth that can grow just about any beautiful flower. And this is the earth of fertility. It's also an earth, all earth signs are really made for this material realm. They want to manifest. Earth signs came here to create things that have lasting value. They came here to manifest and build actual things. Now, versus the fire signs came here to create experiences. So the three kinds of building, the one is the Taurus earth, where there's two simultaneous actions. The Taurian earth, the plant is rooting into the deep soil. It's establishing its stability. Taurus people like to be quite tactile with their hands, whether they're planting, playing an instrument, maybe they're singing a song, cooking food. It's very tactile here in the realm because the earth, the plant is reaching out, roots spreading across the soil and flowering, creating beauty at the top. Two things, right? The Virgo kind of earth, you want to imagine the fields of production, like these crops of production that the truck's going to come along at some point and the food's going to go to the farmer's market, right? But like with the Virgo earth, we got to get the perfect rice, the beans, all the things ready. And we've kind of sussed out which are the working vegetables, which are not. And then it goes up to market. So Virgo relates very much to the kind of tilling of the soil, the managing of the earth, the organization of the earth. As Virgos like to be very much, we could say, in the weeds. Like I'm a Virgo, and in business, as much as like we can say we are teaching and growing the school and all these things now, but I will always be on the ground in like the veins of the leaf with my clients. I love the details. I love keeping things real on the ground versus the Capricorn earth is way up at the mountaintop. They don't want to get into the veins of the leaf, and all this nitty gritty. You can imagine the Capricorn earth is like at the top of the mountain. This is a more managerial view. They're like looking down and they can see all the city planning and they can kind of do this air traffic controlling thing from above. They know how to allocate resources here and there and how to move all these pieces around, right? Because they have that big picture view from the top of the mountain. And that's a rather dry earth at the top. It's rock, it's stone, it's dirt. It doesn't have all the moisture that the Taurus earth has. Virgo has medium moisture. And Capricorn earth is dry. Here, it's like straight shoot up to the goal. We're going to do whatever it takes to get there versus Virgo is like doing the work in the fields, making it happen there. So these are the three kinds of earth that all create sort of like a whole highly functional little workflow there, right? They're all kind of managing production.
Yeah, and that makes so much sense. I mean, the way you describe it, it's really funny. I'm going to talk about the other elements too. I've always looked at elements in astrology and tarot for that matter as cosmic weather patterns or weather patterns. And one of the things, and for the people who are listening, I've taken classes with Rebecca. She's an amazing teacher. And your whole idea of this ecosystem kind of blew my mind. I had never even though I looked at tarot for, blah, 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 so many years, and I've been studying astrology, I never thought of the elements as an ecosystem. And again, for me, it's always been weather. So the ecosystem thing, it not only blew my mind, but it really does give someone a different perspective and a very practical perspective. So I really love that so much about your way of looking at this. So what about air signs? I mean, I'm an air sign. I've got a lot of air in my chart. What do we need to know
I
about air
love
signs?
air and I have no air, so I love hanging out with air signs. I feel like I have all this earth and I meet air signs and the wind just blows all the crop seeds around and all this cross pollination happens. Whenever I talk to you, I get so inspired. It's like I need that air in my life, you know? And I have a lot of air sign friends. They come to me with ideas and I'm like, let's make it happen. Here's how we're going to do it. And I'll create a whole plan. I'll get on Asana and I'll geek out, I'll go there. So that's what happens when you're hanging out with somebody who's lots of earth. But maybe that's an interesting thing to explore too. Maybe we can touch on the alchemy of like if somebody has a lot of say air and earth, they're somebody that's here to bring ideas down from the
Mhm.
ethers and anchor them into this manifest world, ground them into reality here. Now, you're going to find a lot of writers actually who have heavy air because that is the world of thinking, writing, ideas. Hello, Teresa. What book are you writing now? How
I'm
many books have you written?
I'm
Master of
just
Air.
really yeah, I'm just releasing book number 9, The Cards Are Dealt, How to Deal When Life Gets Real. And it's interesting, again, I always learn so much from you. I mean, I am 3 planets in Gemini, 3 planets in Virgo. So bringing ideas down to earth, right there, you're nailing me. If you didn't know me and just came out with that, it'd be like, oh my God, yeah, that's the alchemy of my chart, the air and the earth. So, wow, yeah, book number 9. And so pure Gemini, super Gemini.
I love that. So I meet you here on the Virgo plane. So you're in the air. You're the wind swishing around at the top of the mountain and everywhere through the canopy layers. The winds blow the trees. They blow the seeds across the fields. And then they're like, all right, we're going to do something with all these ideas. We're going to write a book. We're going to ground it into something that's meaningful and useful for people. Now, especially your new title of the book, I feel like that is such a beautiful alchemy of air and earth. Will you repeat the name of that title just for the listeners? I feel like that was just
Yeah.
perfect example.
Well, the title is The Cards Are Dealt, How to Deal When Life Gets Real. And by the way, y'all, you're going to love this. So I did not come up with the title. My son did. And my son is an Aquarius, Moon in Gemini, Libra rising, triple air. And he came up with that title. I'm like, that fits this book perfectly. Talk about air and ideas and all of that. He's like definitely one of those.
I love that. And it also brings it down to earth, like how to deal when life gets real. All right, we're a Virgo on the ground here. We're gonna deal with these wild and crazy winds. So yes, the realm of the alchemy of air and earth, you see that most often in prolific writers. Hello. And also if we mix air and I mean, if we mix fire and earth, that's also a very interesting combination. And that's most often seen in leadership.
Mm.
When somebody lights the fire, they're like, here's my vision. And they get people really excited. And then they're like, and here's how we're going to do it. Here's how we're going to implement. Because everybody likes to hear a vision and also the actuating it. What are we going to do to make it a reality? So you see that in kind of like traditional leadership, but there's all kinds of leadership too. So just want to mention that. And it's a very it's functional, creative thing when you mix fire and earth together. So we can mix any combination. Everybody listening here, you are all a unique ecosystem. Some of you are like a volcano in the middle of the ocean. Let's say you got a lot of Scorpio and Sag, and other people might be like this beautiful arid desert. And every ecosystem has a genius to it, a genus and a genius. Like how you feel when you're in that ecosystem is how people feel when they're around you, essentially. So I like to think of it that way. Like, think of the nourishment you feel when you're in an ecosystem that's like very moist and wet, like the Pacific Northwest moss, and somebody who has a lot of earth and water. But okay, I digress. Let's get into air. Gemini, we have Libra, we have Aquarius, and the three kinds of air essentially are three ways of being here. The first one, Gemini, we talk about the quick, sharp winds that carry the seeds from one field to the next, cross-pollination of ideas. And this just brings ideas around. Geminis are here to disseminate information rather quickly, transfer knowledge, move it around the planet, get the seeds blowing in the wind, get the ideas moving. Air is all the realm of ideas. Libra and air, these winds are quite different. They are the soft, balmy breezes that make you just want to hang out al fresco and socialize with your friends. You want to hang with your pals outside. You want to build relationships. It's kind of that softness of the air that just makes you want to linger and connect. And Librans are known for being relationship builders, being in PR, being in aesthetics, enjoying the beauty of life. Those are the soft breezes. And then we get into like this kind of Aquarian air, which is it's almost like these you can think of like the stratosphere, winds up there that are here to kind of impregnate consciousness with brand new ideas. It's kind of like a whoosh that comes in, almost like a storm from some other place. And it dries the earth. It knocks us all out of our routines and patterns. It shakes things up a bit. So that's how I would see the three kinds of air in terms of ecologies.
Wow. And so I can see all of those in my son, by the way. What about water? So water, obviously we think of water as moist and wet and deep. I mean, what with the water elements, how do they show up in the signs?
Yeah, let's come back to our earth there. So the water ecologies and the earth reveals so much about our personality types. All water signs are in the world of feeling, and we're doing different things with feeling. Let's start with our first water sign of Cancer. So here we can imagine a room temperature, or not room, body temperature water, like you're in a
Mm.
Watu pool, in a pond, in a lake, in a bath, in something where it's just you don't even know you're in the water because it's body temperature, and you feel held, almost like you're in the womb. There's a sense of safety here, and Cancers want to feel that, and they want to give that to other people. They want to nurture things and give you that feeling. And also they have many other qualities too. They're quite tenacious and a whole lot of other things, but ultimately it is the water that holds you, and that holds you in the firmament, that holds your body here, makes you feel safe. We go deeper into the scorpionic waters, and here we're at the depths of the ocean. And on that journey down to the bottom of the ocean, you're going to have to let go of everything you knew. You're going to have to let go of all the things that made you feel safe. Scorpio's not domesticated. Cancer is domestic. Scorpio's not domestic. It's primal. So, right? It's like Cancer is like, oh, do you need a pillow? You want a cup of tea? Let me make you feel comfortable. Scorpios is not even in that realm. It's a realm of primal instinct. So, you have these instincts, and then you have these feelings in Cancer where you have these instincts, these gut instincts in Scorpio. The bottom of the ocean, you can't see anything. You've had to let go of everything on the way down. And here's where you have to trust your instinct in the dark. And Scorpio very much relies upon instinct. If you're a Scorpio, you should begin to listen to that more often. Um, there's always a sense of letting go and trusting in Scorpio. That's essential to move on. There can be a sense of on one end of the spectrum of hoarding, and on the other end of the spectrum of fully releasing.
Mm.
It's very much about that trust and vulnerability. So that's sort of the depth of the ocean where you just kind of have to let go and sometimes not see anything. Then we move into our third kind of water, which I imagine as this rushing waterfall into a river, something like that, which is the waters of Pisces. This is the realm of emotion, the movement of feelings. Feelings are moving, they're flowing, they're changing. And Pisces are always privy to their own moving feelings. I felt this then, and now I feel this. And they're so aware of those rushing streams within their bodies and those changing feelings. It brings them to the forefront. And anybody who has a good deal of water in their chart, whether it's Cancer, Scorpio, or Pisces, you naturally have that ecology within you. So when you show up into a room, people might feel, I can relax in that water, or, oh, I feel like it's pulling out the depths of my being in the scorpionic water, or I feel like I can share everything with this Pisces. They're so open, So people, and I think it's interesting to look at relationships, like two people meet, a Capricorn meets a Pisces, and here you have those hard rocks get smoothed over by the rushing waterfall, and this Capricorn starts to feel more graceful and smooth and soft and open because water is the most powerful element, as it's the only thing that can really change the shape of rocks, and it can smooth everything out. And I love to think about that as the power of water to change rocks. So the power of emotion and how important water is in general, because it is really what moves the earth. And air can too, the power of ideas and emotions to really change the shape of the structures and the systems we create in earth. I love to think about all these alchemy. When two people meet, what do they create? They create a unique ecosystem.
Yes.
So this is sort of like my entry point into astrology before we get into the nitty gritty planet signs and houses. It's like, who are you? What kind of swath of the earth do you exist on? What would that look like if you were a part of nature? And what does that part of nature offer to humanity? So I love to ask these questions. What is the genius of that part of nature? And what would throw it out of balance, most important? So
Mm.
what can we do to make sure your ecosystem stays in its healthy homeostasis?
That is an actually great question, and that is something I have on my mind too. I think about when you mentioned that you don't have any air in your chart. I have no fire in my chart. And I find sometimes when we're missing an element, either it really shows, like you can tell, or people overcompensated for it, and suddenly you can't tell because a lot of people think I'm a fire sign, I'm very fiery. Or we surround ourselves with people like you surround yourself with Geminis and air signs. I surround myself with a lot of fire sign people. So there's always something I think we're trying to seek balance one way or another. And if we're not balanced in our alchemy, so to speak, again, either it shows one way or the other,
Yeah.
or you're looking for a way to compensate that. How do you feel about that?
Yeah, I feel like relationships are so important there. And like in the world we're living in right now, I feel like platonic relationships get really undermined as like the culture is so focused on like romantic relationships and things like that. But really by building relationships and connecting with people like we're doing right now who have elements you don't have, they're going to bring stuff out of you. And that is so fruitful. Like when I applied this to my business, like when I hired my team, Like I work with almost 8 people now, and they all bring to the table things that I don't have at all because I don't have anybody on my team who has planets like mine. Because why? I'm doing that. I want a varied ecosystem to be like different kinds of cultures, bacteria from all different places. I think that's really interesting to mix things up a lot and learn more, be challenged by people that are so different from yourself. Like I love being challenged by heavy amounts of air,
Mm.
that because sometimes admittedly I can feel a little like, oh, where's my grounding here? But then I'm like, wait, I love this. I love this new inspiration that you bring. And then I'm able to kind of, get my groove in and apply it and stuff. But air is something, it's interesting that yeah, I've had none of, just like you haven't had the fire, and I've had to work on that. I've learned it through working with a team that has a lot of air, and they've taught me just by proxy being around them, hanging out with them all the time, having friends that have a lot of air. I've learned the ways of air, So I think building relationships is like the fulcrum of life. It's so important. Um, and also, that all said, like, know your genius. Like your genius, Teresa, I feel like is the element of air. I looked at you, I see you bringing all these wonderful ideas from the ethers, anchoring them down into the Virgo earth too.
Thank you.
And
And
I
you
know
br
I'm here to do the sorry.
Oh,
Yeah.
no, I mean, and I see you doing, with your teaching and the work that you teach us so much. You bring it down to earth. You make astrology really accessible. And I think that is so important because so many times people say, astrology is way over my head. I can never get it. And I'm like, you can get it. You just need the right teacher. And I think Virgos, because they are so down to earth and grounded and rooted and practical, they really are fantastic teachers. And you just do such an amazing job of explaining it. Like I said, you really changed my perspective when I took classes with you because I always looked at it as weather, and suddenly this ecosystem, it had me looking at astrology in a completely different way. So your genius is absolutely in that. Now you have a class coming up. When is that class coming up? What do people need to know about it?
Thanks so much for saying that, first of all. I really appreciate that, Teresa, coming from you. Yes, I teach this class once a year, and it is called Master the Birth Chart, Beginners Astrology. It begins on October 9th. So, yes, we'll share a link to it as well. But ultimately, this is a class I've been teaching. I can't believe it now, but I started when I was 24 years old teaching this class. And now I'm 44. It's been 20 years. I have been teaching this class, and every year I've built in more into the class. Now we have, our alumni of 10 years that are mentors during the class, and I have more office hours, and we have so much extra material for our students. And we created these wonderful constellation groups that the students can be part of, like a 4-person study group. We have people in the Lyra constellation, or every constellation has a group of people. So anyway, it is a full-on course if you want to learn astrology. It is completely comprehensive. It is live. There's some pre-recorded, some live. It's a great mix of both. It's about 14 weeks long. People walk in and they're like, I don't know. I don't know if I can do this sometimes, but they've signed up. By the end of the 14 weeks, I'm listening to them read the chart so beautifully, and they can't even believe they're doing it. But it's pretty amazing to see what happens with every cohort, because everybody rises up to the top simultaneously, and they all help each other, and people build friends for life. So this is like the course that I love teaching most, probably, and I get to do it every fall. I love the fall, back to school season. Hello, Virgos. It was our favorite time. So that's why, I always teach it like early October, my favorite time of year. And whether you want to become a professional astrologer or not, I think this course will give you wonderful foundations that you can apply to anything in your life. That all said, we have graduated a ton of highly successful professional astrologers from our school, because as a Virgo, I'm not just here to teach you astrology, I'm also here to help you build a business. Because let's be real, we all have to like live on planet Earth and pay rent or mortgage. And if you want to be an astrologer, I want to show you that this can be completely viable, accessible, and you can make a healthy living doing this as well. So I want to give you the tools and also show you how to use them. And it's really important though, it's really important to focus on each person's ecosystem and native strengths in building their business, because it's not always going to look like mine. We want to lean into your unique voice as an astrologer and build around your chart. Like I like to use your chart as your business plan essentially, and build your system out of that, because that's going to be most successful. Like I can tell you what I did, but that might not work for you. If you have a totally different ecology, you're not going to like doing the things that I did. So I try to kind of show everybody that's not a one size fits all, and you want to build something that is so unique to your cosmic recipe.
Mm. And I will say again, for everyone who is listening, I've taken numerous classes with Rebecca. I always feel she makes me a better astrologer. Rebecca, you always give me information, different ways, different perspectives of looking at astrology that deepen my practice. So I've just been very grateful for your teaching. And for folks who are listening in, if you are new to astrology, if you really feel like I can't get this, like I said, it's not you. You haven't found the right teacher. I think Rebecca's amazing. Please sign up for her class. And Rebecca, where can people find the class? Where can they sign up?
Thanks so much, Teresa. The class is on my website, and you will see it when you go to the RebeccaGordonAstrology.com. You'll see it as a little banner on the top, where you can just click the banner, and that will take you to the Master the Birth Chart Beginners Astrology. It is an excellent course for the total beginner or the advanced beginner. I've had people even come in that are intermediate or advanced students like yourself, and also get a lot of new perspectives from the class. So it's always great to see astrologers and tarot readers and people I respect in the class. And I love to continue going to classes also. Um, so yeah, I mean, it's something that I look forward to every year, and meeting the new cohort. Like there's never been a better time, I would say, to learn the esoteric arts, whether it be tarot or astrology. There's never been a time where the world is so open to all of this that we're doing, Teresa. What do you think about that?
I think you are so right. We are looking for answers. We're looking for different ways to understand ourselves and this thing called life. And these are great tools for people to understand all of that. And also, one other thing I do want to add, beginners classes are important even for advanced students. I used to teach yoga before COVID killed my studio. And I also, you got to go back and revisit the basics because you will always get a different perspective. If you
Oh,
go back 5 years from when you started, 10 years, or even like 6 months, go back to the basics, strengthen that foundation. It's just going to make you better at your work.
I love that you just said that. We have so many students that take our intermediate class first, and then they're like, wait, I want to go back to beginner.
Yeah, strengthen
Because
that
they realize they're in too
foundation.
deep. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I love the same way. I love going back to foundational yoga classes too after all that advanced stuff. You got to like posture, basic
Hmm.
things.
You got to learn how to
So yeah,
stand.
right. Really strong foundations are what I think I pride our school in the most. And also all the resources, but like you want the strong foundations that you can build any house, empire, city from. You need a strong foundation. You need solid ground to build on. So yeah, thanks for letting me share that as well with the course. And it's been so much fun talking to you.
It's always great talking to you, Rebecca. And I always learn so much every single time.